Good morning, everybody. Do we have a special treat for you today? We have a couple of new faces and new friends. Jennifer, I don't know where Jennifer went. She must be mad at me currently. But we've got Shaylin, we've got Jennifer from the Learning Services team, and they are going to talk to you all about rethinking your page design in Canvas LMS today. You don't want to miss it. These are some of our expert instructional designers over here at Instructure, and they're going to answer all your questions, whatever they are. Ask them. As always, tell us who you are, where you're from. Oh, looks like we've got Amelia Senora Stein. Welcome, my friend. Thanks for joining us. We want to know who you are, and we want to answer all your questions. So with that, Shaylin, Jennifer, let's get this thing going.
Thank you so much for taking the time to attend this session. We are super excited to get to talk to you today about rethinking page design, your gateway to learning. Throughout this session, we'll talk about why page design is important and provide you with a few tips for designing your pages in ways that align with universal design for learning principles. We'll also showcase a few examples of pages designed by our instructional design team. So let's get started with the homepage. The homepage is the gateway to the course. It's also the first impression that students have of your course, so it's important to take the time to personalize the course and make it inviting and easy to use for your students. Additionally, as a well-designed homepage aligns with universal design for learning principles and addresses the why, what, and how of learning. If you take a look at UDL Principle 7.3, it addresses the need to minimize threats and distractions and create a safe place for learners. A well-designed homepage creates a safe place and allows students to focus on learning rather than stressing over basic needs like how to navigate the course. UDL Principle 2.5 addresses the importance of illustrating course content through multiple forms of media. A well-designed homepage provides the information that students need not only through text, but through visual graphics and images and even videos. And then finally, UDL Principle 5.1 addresses the importance of using multiple forms of media to communicate. A well-designed homepage allows the instructor to communicate through text, video, and graphics. So now let's talk about a few tips for designing your homepage in such a way that it meets those universal design for learning principles mentioned. So the first tip is that the homepage should be inviting and welcoming. Consider adding a brief welcome message or video and using an inviting color palette throughout the homepage. The second tip is to let students know what they're going to get in the course. It's important to provide a brief introduction or description of the content. Important information should be provided clearly on the homepage for students to see at a glance. Students should know the value of learning the content throughout the course. Homepage tip number 3 is to include visual elements that represent the course. Images, graphics, and videos are often great ways to present information. There are lots of different tools to create these visual elements, such as Google Draw, there's Adobe Illustrator, Canva, and even Screencast-O-Matic to record videos. One thing to keep in mind while designing visual elements is accessibility. For images, it's important to include an alt attribute describing the content. If the image is just for visual styling, such as a content divider, alt text is not needed. Instead, you can mark those as decorative. For audio files, you should always include a transcript, and for videos, those should always be closed captioned. Homepage tip number 4 is to provoke action with clear instructions. Students should know exactly what to do and how to get started from the directions on the homepage. Consider adding a Getting Started button or providing a video that walks students through how to get started. And then finally, we move to tip number 5. Homepage tip number 5 is to provide quick and easy navigation. Students should be able to navigate to their current content in 3 clicks or less. It's important to hide links that aren't going to be used to minimize confusion for your students. Also, including buttons or links that have a purpose and help streamline access to learning materials is very important. For example, consider adding a set of course navigation buttons. You can even add icons or images to these buttons to improve the overall look. Here are a few examples of home pages created by our instructional design team. Both of these examples I'm showing you now are geared more toward K-12. As you can see, both examples contain the elements of a well-designed homepage and align with UDL principles. So both home pages are inviting and welcoming. There's a consistent color palette on each, and both contain a welcome message. There's also room for a welcome video if the instructor so chooses to add one. Both home pages also let students know what they're going to get. At a glance, it's clear that what the content and what the course is about, and there's also a brief description of the course there. And both also contain visual elements that represent the course. As you can see, the course contains some nice banners with some nice buttons that have clear descriptors of what the buttons are for. Both home pages also provoke action with clear instructions. There's clear instructions for the course, and on the first course, there's instructions telling students what each of the buttons are for and how to begin. On the second course, the buttons clearly indicate where the student can find the class introduction, the weekly lessons, reading tools, and technical support. And lastly, you can tell from these homepage examples that navigation is quick and easy. Both contain those sets of quick link buttons to quickly allow students to navigate to course content. Here are a few other examples of homepage. Both of these are geared more toward high school or higher ed. And just like the other two, both contain the elements of a well-designed homepage and align with UDL principles. You can see all those elements here with the inviting and welcoming homepage. Both let students know what they're going to get at a glance. You can see that there's visual elements too. There's a nice homepage banner. There's also some nice buttons. Both of the buttons on each example are different, so it gives you a good idea of what your course could look like, different ways that you could design that homepage. Both also provoke action with clear instructions, and again, the navigation on both of these is quick and easy with those quick link buttons to allow students to navigate to course content quickly.
So Shaylin talked about using pages to design an inviting and welcoming course homepage. And that's all very important, and everything she talked about as far as graphical, making things look good and consistent and clean and clear, all those carry over to what we're talking about now in the overview pages and really throughout your course. So I want to talk to you about using pages within your modules. I think sometimes pages are underutilized because instructors have a lot of resources that they just add into Canvas, like presentations and their notes, their lecture notes, those kinds of things, and they don't think about using the power of pages. But pages can provide that missing link between your content and your assignments. So let's take a look at one way we can use pages in your modules. A module overview page and even a conclusion or wrap-up page can support your learners in providing the beginning and the ending of a learning topic. So think about adding an introductory or overview page to your learning modules. And this can introduce the learning objectives, the major themes, the key concepts that you'll cover. And also think about putting in a to-do list. This will help keep students on track, organizing and even prioritizing activities and expectations. I think that's super important for students to know what to expect in the course. We talk about the why, the what, and the how. That's the purpose of the overview page. So also that to-do list is going to help support goal setting for your students, promote the learning expectations, and help motivate them to kind of use that checklist kind of theory to get things done. So an overview page that includes learning objectives and a to-do list also aligns with several key elements in the Universal Design for Learning principles: the why of learning, the what of learning, and the how of learning. So when we talk about overview page tips, we talked a little bit about learning objectives. Here are some things to consider or to keep in mind on your overview page. So you might want to think about including a succinct list of clear learning objectives. Use everything you've learned about writing learning objectives, those SMART learning objectives. This strategy supports processing the information so it's easier to consume and comprehend for your students. That visual chunking of information makes it easy to remember, helps them to absorb it a little bit better. So you can do this in a few ways. You can use a bulleted list or numbered list to highlight important information and emphasize key elements. Another way would be to create an accessible table with information displayed in columns or rows for a visual understanding of the relationships. And then a more visual option even would be to design an infographic or visual overview of the material as an alternative to text. So any chance you get to bring the visual aspect in, do that, and make sure that as you're adding those visual elements that you're keeping in mind that initial design you have on your home page and your color schemes and your buttons, and kind of carry that through into these pages. So we'll take a look at some examples of those in just a second. The other major component of an overview page is your to-do list. I'm a list person. I have a list in front of me all the time. That's how I stay organized, and that's how I get things done. And students really need that. They really want to know what to do and what's expected of them. When we talk about a gateway to learning and a gateway to learning modules, having that list and knowing exactly what to do, when to do it, that's so very important. So that list is going to help keep your students on track, help them get organized, prioritize, those kinds of things. Again, just like with your objectives, use numbered or bulleted lists to prioritize activities so that they can set their goals. Consider providing options. This is one that a lot of people don't think of, but when you talk about universal design for learning, you want to give them some options for activities that they can complete. For example, complete 3 of the 5 activities in this section, or choose from 2 options to check your understanding about. So those would give your students some choices for how they learn and help address a variety of learning styles. Another option is to consider using badges. So as students move through your content, they can earn badges for completing certain tasks, and they can foster motivation and engagement. Almost kind of adds a little gamification to your course in some ways. But if you set up your learning module so that students have the opportunity to earn a badge based on the requirements that you set, mastery of content or achievement in building skills, then it helps them to get that visual verification that they've actually completed something, and it makes them feel good about what they're doing, that sense of accomplishment. So here are some examples of overview pages. On this example, you'll see that we have that clean and consistent border, the heading at the top. That's going to mirror what we've had on our course homepage. You're going to provide your brief overview of the course. You might even consider putting in a welcome video or an introductory video, especially if you didn't have it on the homepage. Or maybe this is just module specific and you want to do an intro to the module. That visual each week or each module with your students helps to increase the accountability between you and your students and starts building that relationship. So use that video if you can. It's super easy to do that right inside of Canvas. So you can see on this example, you do have your overview with your to-do list and your list of outcomes at the top. So both of these examples just show you a different view of what that would look like. Notice that they're chunked, they're in small pieces, they're listed, so it's very clear and easy to understand. The students should be able to scan this page and get everything they need to know about what this modular unit is about and what they should be doing and what your expectations are. So this example is a really nice one. It actually incorporates the use of a table. So it actually helps delineate your objectives in a table format, which is super easy to identify and interact with. On the right-hand side, you see an infographic of the topics covered. So both provide a visual representation of the learning content and the relationships between the topics and the content. So examples like these would also be great for a summary or wrap-up at the end of a module. Providing a bird's eye view of the learning will help students understand the big picture and aid in connecting the dots for meaningful learning.
thank y'all so much for attending this session. Does anyone have any questions or comments?
We do have a few. First off, let's take this one from Ellen, who's saying, on the home page, are your buttons embedded in a table to organize? How did you set those buttons up?
They are not. They are, we typically recommend adding some sort of padding. So you can do that just by adding a little bit of white space as you create your buttons. They are just embedded images all on a page, not within a table. Usually what we recommend is especially when it comes to accessibility, if you're going to use a table, it needs to be for tabular data, not just to place an image. So you can use, there's a few different HTML hacks that you can do, like you can use a div if you're having trouble with the spacing. But really, if you add a little layer of padding to those button images as you create them, a little bit of white space, you shouldn't have a problem with your buttons on your homepage.
Awesome. Let's take this question from Jean, who is saying, can you create that infographic in Canvas?
I'm not aware of how you could create an infographic per se in Canvas, but you could do things on a page like adding a table, or you could create some image elements that you would typically put on an infographic, and you could put those directly on a page in Canvas. So it would be a little tricky to do. You might have to use a little bit of HTML to get your things aligned correctly, but it's possible for sure. It just may be easier to embed an infographic that you created. Jennifer, I'll tag team on this one. Do you know of any other ways?
Not specifically inside of Canvas, but you could create your infographic in like a pictochart and then just embed that right there on your page. Otherwise, it'll just be a graphic that you have to create outside.
Awesome. Let's take this question from Dave. How do you set the tab sequence for buttons for accessible users?
So let me see if I understand that question correctly. Are you saying the order that the buttons would go in, or that the screen reader would read?
Let's go with that as a yes.
Okay, perfect. So I believe that a screen reader will read from left to right. Jennifer, is that the way it should read? So if your buttons are on the page, it should read everything from left to right.
And you're also going to use your headers and your header styles as you're building out your content, and that will help delineate the different levels. So yes, it should read from left to right from there and read it correctly.
Awesome. Let's go to my good friend, Chris Giles. Chris Giles is actually the father of this live stream program. Back in March, he had the great idea. Hey, Chris, thanks for joining. He brings up a point that he would say no. Is it possible using some of the HTML and whatnot to create some cool graphics? Sure. Would we recommend that? Probably not. We'd use some tool like Canva or Google Draw or Photoshop or something else just because of the ease of use. But yes, you could do something. Candace calls out Canva, not to be confused with Canvas, is a great for making infographics, free and small fee. Great point. Let's take this one from Chris again. Do you recommend that teachers add a page to the to-do list for students?
We would recommend adding the to-do list to like an overview page. I'm not sure if that answers your question. So it would be a page, but we would probably add it to the overview where it's just a list. It's different than the to-do list that you typically think of in Canvas. Like on the right side of the homepage, there's that to-do list. The to-do list that we've mentioned today is specific to page design, on really providing a list of what your students are going to do, not just assignments, but here's a page that you're going to review. You need to watch this video, watch this PowerPoint, review these lecture notes, that sort of thing. It's more of an extended view or extended to-do list, more than just the typical to-do list that you see on the homepage. Jennifer, does that, I'm going to let Jennifer tag team on that with me too. She may have some additional information.
I do. I have another thought on that, and my answer is yes. I would. When you create a content page at the very bottom, you can say, add this to the to-do list. And I have found that it is a good way to make sure students are actually seeing the reminder to go to modules and view that page. So if that's what you were referring to, absolutely. I think to me, it has been one of the best things I have ever done in my courses is to add that reminder with a date to put it on the to-do list.
Awesome. Let's take this next one from Laura. Do you recommend using different home pages for different weeks? Our current homepage has different objectives and intro videos that are redundant in future weeks. What's your recommendation?
Jennifer, do you want to take this one? We've actually had conversations about this in the past. Or I'm happy to take it. Yeah, I would say it's really going to be up to you. If you use different home pages for different weeks, you definitely could do that. And we have heard from some instructors who are doing that. They go ahead and create their home pages with the different objectives and different videos, and they just keep those unpublished, and then they publish the ones as the week comes about. I've also seen it where you can add some of that information in an announcement. So that would keep you from having to change your homepage every single week. If you had it set where your weekly announcement showed up at the top, or had one or two announcements show up at the top, you could do that. And then whatever information, your objectives, if you included that in that announcement, it's automatically going to show up on your homepage at all times without you having to redo it.
Great. What about this?
And I'll just echo that to say,
go ahead, Jennifer. Go ahead.
I would say yes, I agree. I have done it both ways where I have used a different homepage every week, and I just have to set myself a reminder on my calendar to go in every Monday morning or Sunday night and change that homepage. And I've also done it the other way where you just add announcements to the top. I think I like using a different homepage each week because it gives you that overview option right there on the home page, and it doesn't repeat information that they've seen over and over again, whereas it still may have the same look and feel of your home page.
Love it. Let's take this one from Dave. What about design concepts for students accessing via mobile? How would we specify button sizes to best address mobile users?
That's a great question. And we always consider mobile usage whenever we design pages. As long as your buttons, I would say, are relatively small, like we're going to recommend around 200 pixels, something like that. It should be fine. Now, for your banners, you're always going to want those set to 100%. That way, it will adjust per screen size. You can do that for your other things too. You could set your buttons up as a percentage, like 20% of the page. You can have that set all up. But with your buttons, if you have them set to a relatively to a reasonable size, like 200 pixels, it should be fine. And also, depending on how you set it up, if you set it up the way that we've mentioned, just all embedded on a page in order. As the screen size changes, those buttons are going to adjust. Those buttons are going to start stacking.
Awesome. Great comment here from Lisa. I think of my homepage as my classroom. It doesn't change very much throughout the year and serves to be a familiar and safe landing place for students. Great idea. Back to Dave again. Can you auto-publish pages on dates if you set them up beforehand? Jennifer, do you want to take that one?
Not as the home page. You can set them to publish. You can set them to be available in a module on a certain date, but you cannot set it to automatically update your home page, unfortunately.
Awesome. What a great session, everybody. Big thanks to Shaylin as well as Jennifer for joining us today. These are, of course, available, as you know, for time and all eternity. So come on over, check out our YouTube channel, Canvas LMS. We are back tomorrow morning at 10:30 a.m. And let me tell you, it's going to be another really cool session. It's going to be something called Idea Machine, which is a cool thing that's come out of Wharton that we're excited to show you all about that is going to be free for the next many months. So join me tomorrow morning at 10:30 a.m. Mountain Time. We will see you then. Thanks to our instructional design experts for being with us today. See you, everybody.